for either Mayor Hogan or for Congressman Kaufman. Any questions today? Oh my goodness. Yes, ma'am.
Of course. So based on the Obamacare Act, we have a provision in there. Need I say more? We have a provision in there that deals with the housing market and the sale. And in the past, we've kind of been letting it go, thinking it might be repealed. Can you address how that is going to affect us now in the sale of a home? That 3%?
It's 3.8? Is it 3.8 on capital gains?
Yes.
It's on, the question is how will the capital gains provision, the 3.8, affect the sale of the home? Let me relook at that, but it's my understanding that that is on it would be on the capital gain of the sale of the home. And so, you know, I got to tell you, this is, I just don't see anything. One reason why I don't see anything good about the economy between, you know, we're going to still skipping along the bottom between now and the end of the year, is the fact that there's such uncertainty in terms of tax policy that people are holding back, a lot of people are holding back on making decisions, particularly investment decisions. And so that's really problematic. We do hit a tax cliff. I mean, with all of the Bush-era tax cuts, not only all of the Bush-era tax cuts expiring, but the new taxes from the Affordable Care Act coming in on 2013, that being one of them. So, you know, right now, all federal outlays spending is about 24% of the economy. I don't think in post-World War II American economic history that our revenues have ever exceeded 20–21% during the best of times with higher rates. And so we have a gap, and we've got to, I think what we have to do is figure out how to bring revenues down from 16 to 17% up to 20%, and I think those are with the right economic policies. And then the other one, we've got to bring spending down to 20% of GDP. We can't, there's no way this economy can support increasing taxes to chase a government the size we have right now.
Somewhat hopeful a few minutes ago on some kind of a budget accord. We haven't seen a budget since 2008, and it seems to have ballooned with the stimulus and with a one-time TARP and kind of stayed there. And I don't know how that worked, but could you, I mean, are you really honestly feeling like there might be some hope?
Yeah, I think that there is. The question is you know, why and how do I base my optimism in terms of coming into an accord? It's true. I mean, the Senate hasn't passed the budget in the last 3 years. But that is kind of the purpose of that budget is to show a path and over a 10-year period, and so that hasn't been done. But here's the thing that is unique, I think, historically, that we're facing in the Congress, and that is that things will happen automatically. In other words, that unless an alternative proposal is put forward, that all the Bush tax cuts will go up to their prior rate, because the way the statute was written, the law was written to put them in effect, was that they would sunset, and they all sunset at the end of the year. Then the other thing is the sequester, and that is $1.2 trillion of cuts over a 10-year period, disproportionately on defense, about half of it. And so that will hit us here in Colorado pretty hard. And so that, unless we come up with an alternative proposal, that comes into effect on January 1. So there's really no kicking the can down the road. We either come to an agreement on something better, or we know what's going to happen. And so the third element probably is and the confluence of all these things coming crashing together at the same time would be bumping up against another debt limit. So all these things are, so I think you could see one of the most impactful lame duck sessions in the history of the country. I certainly hope so. That it's a time in a bipartisan way to sit down and get something done. Again, Republicans have said, you know, you got to do something with entitlements. Democrats said you got to do something with revenue. Well, here's a time when inherently revenues are on the table because of the expansion of the push tax cuts, so it's a question of at what level can we bring them back and negotiate that with some entitlement reform, I would hope. So I think it's, and I would say one thing, the president did do a good, you know, even though I'm no fan of the president, as people know, but I will tell you what, I think he did a very good job back in 2010 in the lame duck session, where he brought people into the White House, he hammered out an agreement. Part of it was an extension of some tax cuts, because he said that he didn't think the economy could afford higher taxes when it was at the position it was. But anyway, he fashioned a bipartisan agreement under his leadership that I supported, but I think that the wings of extremes of both parties did not support. And we need that leadership again in this lame duck session, and I have no reason to think that it won't be there. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for everything that you've done in helping us in the lending side, because as realtors, we really struggle with predatory lending and things of that nature. However, we've kind of swung too far, and I would ask for your help with banking and finance, because we've got situations now where we have folks that own condos in communities where, because of declining values, they weren't able to sell in order to pursue the American dream of a home, so they rented out their property. So then you impacted the amount of ownership versus investor population. So I've got a couple in an urban development in downtown Denver that couldn't get a buyer to qualify for a loan without having to put 20% down on a $150,000 condo, which most buyers can't. And we've swung so far now that these purchasers are really struggling to buy that $300,000 or $400,000 house that they'd like to buy, because they can't sell their place, because the loans are no longer warrantable, and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all the secondary organizations won't purchase those. So if there's anything that you can do to help us out with that type of restrictive, there's so many people that live in condos and townhomes that's that first step, and now they're ready for the next step. The declining values and situations like that have impacted them adversely. So if there's anything you can do to the finance, it would be great.
No, I think that, you know, we've got to take a look at that. Obviously, there's a real concern that it's government policies, you know, depressing prices as a result of being overly restrictive, again, an overcorrection. And then also, in looking at, I've been kind of looking at, say, how can we motivate short sales to go forward? And one of the things that's interesting that on the, and I never understand bankers and why they're not motivated to move this forward, because I really think it's in their interest. But on the FHA side, that there's very limited latitude in terms of the loss you can take. That's unrealistic. That's not reflective of market conditions, particularly that vary so much in this country. Where as a conventional loan, you have obviously you have full latitude, and so we need more. We're going to have to loosen up some in terms of allowing more negotiating power to say, you know, it's better that you know, instead of forcing these properties into foreclosure, you know, let's see what we can do through short sales to help communities out, as opposed to saying, you know, I think in the current system, I think it rewards the foreclosure process. So I mean, I think that's problematic. So I think there's a lot, and from a standpoint of tax policy, that we talked about capital gains, we need to extend an exemption for the sellers, that when they sell their property less than what they paid for it, that's not a taxable event from a capital gains standpoint. And if we want to move this process along and get that inventory out there, we have to change that tax policy. We have to extend that out.